It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll pull out the saddle and just smile. Just taking some clean, fresh air for
Smooches, everybody. Before I even get started, I want to say I watched the previous videos and never realized how much I said, you know, you know. So I'm glad this made me aware of it because it was irritating me. I'm so sorry. I'm going to work on that. That'll be one thing that I can do. All right, so this week I'm supposed to be talking about my experiences with hitchhiking, and I felt it was very necessary for me to begin by kind of saying I don't recommend that for anybody, especially nowadays. Even back then, I wouldn't have recognized it. Recommended it if I knew how many crazies were out there. Um, I didn't think my camera was going for a minute there. Um, back then, we didn't have the news, the computers, and everything else to give us so much information about what was going on all over the place. And you look at documentaries of like serial killers and stuff, and how many, especially young girls, were killed because they were hitchhiking. You didn't know the dangers. It was an acceptable way of transportation for especially hippies, because they were going against the stream of things, and that was a way for them to be free and to travel wherever they wanted. And I even had an older brother, Rick, that he was a hippie. I wasn't considered a hippie. I was a little bit later, but um, it, they did. I heard about it all the time, how much he hitchhiked, and even locally, if you wanted to visit a friend in the next town over, usually with that kind of thing, I didn't hitchhike by myself. I usually was with somebody else, and we would hitchhike to the next town, because you either hitchhiked or you walked, because kids did not have cars like they have now. Um, and it was easier to hitchhike and get over there. Otherwise, you were going to spend your whole day walking there, and the rest of the day walking back, and not too much visiting then. Um, so with that being said, yes, when I was younger, um, I was still at home, I did hitchhike with friends to a town, or, across the river, to another town, just to get away for the day, or to go visit someone that lived a little bit farther than what we felt we could walk in a day. And, but as, time went on, and I had, issues at home, and just didn't want to be there anymore. I've already previously stated I was a runaway, and the first time I hitchhiked, um, you know, I just took off late at night, and wanted to head for California. California was just a place I wanted to be. San Francisco. I just felt compelled to be there, and the only way, I didn't have any money, so I definitely couldn't get on a bus or a train or a plane, to get there. So the only way I could figure out how to do it was to hitchhike, and I either did it by myself or I didn't do it at all. So the very first time I tried hitchhiking was kind of funny, though, because 84 runs east and west. I grew up in upstate New York, and so I knew that that would at least get me going towards California. I didn't have a map or anything. I was just gonna, hey, which way are you going? Um, but I didn't stop to think about east and west, the signs. So the first entrance I came to, I just walked down and got on the highway and started hitchhiking. But then I got thinking, oh, I'm headed towards the river, the Hudson River, which was going the opposite direction of California. So I had to walk back over to the other side of the highway and get on there. But, I did get rides from people, and um, I thought it was kind of funny that one woman in particular that picked me up just scolded me the whole way. Like, you shouldn't hitchhike, you don't know the dangers out there, blah, 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 blah. And that was like the next day anyways. I did a lot of walking that night, and because I was kind of scared at first to get in a car with, even though I was hitchhiking and stuff, cars would come towards me, and I'd put my finger down and just kind of walk a little bit ways. Um, but as as a little bit of time went on, it's like, I'm not going to walk all the way to California, so I'm just going to have to accept a ride. So this one woman in particular, like I said, she just scolded me, like, you shouldn't get in cars and blah, 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 blah. And that was a good thing. But then again, if you were so concerned, give me money and let me fly. No, I'm kind of kidding. Um, but I have to get serious real quick because I was 13, and even though I had strong intuitions about things, this particular time I did not use I just wanted to ride. I wanted to get going, you know what I mean? And um, the signs were there. There were definitely signals. A guy in a white truck pulled over. He was a little bit older. Said his passenger door wasn't working. So I should have thought about it then, but you don't. My instincts were saying, don't get in that truck. And when I got in, I had to climb over a thing of beer, which obviously this guy had already started drinking it. And once I was getting in the seat, I realized that there were no handles for the doors or anything. I won't go into details, but I'm lucky that I made it past that event alive. It didn't stop me, and actually, I guess it was a good thing. The next person that picked me up was a cop, actually, that wasn't dressed. He wasn't in a cop car or whatever, and I ended up spending the night in jail until they contacted my mom and so forth, and ended up going back home. But that didn't stop me. It was something that affected me the rest of my life. So I didn't think about that danger, and it wasn't the only time I've come across the creep. I was a little bit more cautious, but sometimes it just, happens. Let's see. So one time when I took off, I decided, I think where he picked me up was just over the line into Ohio. And in Ohio, it's illegal to hitchhike. I found out later. So I tried to avoid Ohio by going north to Canada, which I ended up in Old Quebec. And these people took me in and got me a toothbrush. And my breath really was bad or something. I don't know. They said she needs toothbrush and toothpaste. But I really had a really wonderful week that week. And then I hooked up with another girl who I found out was younger than I was yet. But that time I ran away, I think I was closer to 15. So she was like 14 or something. And again, a lot of people speak French up there. So when I got in this one car in particular, I was like, you're not going to Ohio. No, Ohio. I don't want to go to Ohio. I was planning on hitchhiking all the way across Canada to Washington down, not knowing the territory or anything like that, what that would entail. But next thing I know, it's through the middle of the night and we wake up and they let us out, and first thing that happens is we get picked up by cops because, we were in Ohio. So back home we went again, or I went. I got into more trouble because I was older than she was, and so anyways, so more hitchhiking. Really, the next time I think I hitchhiked was, or spent a lot of time hitchhiking. I mean, I did end up getting to California, but I actually went into Job Corps, and from Job Corps I met up with a couple girls and took off for California in a car and so forth and so on. But when I was in the Army, stationed in Germany, I had the opportunity to go to England, which was another place that I just felt like I needed to go to. I absolutely loved Great Britain, everything about it. I would have stayed. So it was a last minute thing that I switched places with a guy that couldn't go. He had made arrangements on a military plane that was maybe like $10, something really cheap and like a hop. And I just grabbed a backpack and said, okay, I had $30 to my name, decided to go ahead and go. And once I landed in England, I hitchhiked, and that was another case of being on the wrong side of the road when I first put my thumb out until I, saw the first car come by and go, oh, get over to the other side. Um, so I went straight down to London, and it was Heathrow that we flew into, so it wasn't that far or anything. But I had this picture of Big Ben, and that's something that I always thought of. If I go to Big Ben, just like San Francisco, if I go to White Tower, I think that's how you pronounce it. My dream came true. I got to go to San Francisco, so that, that was something important to go to there, and then Big Ben. So I got there. It was late afternoon, and I just sat on the curb, like, here's a main street, here's a road that goes over the bridge this way. I just sat on the sidewalk, like in the gutter there for the longest time, just listening to Big Ben and just being there. And then it got pretty late, and I was like saying to myself, okay, now what the hell are you gonna do? You don't know anybody, and this guy had just seen me sitting there for a while and came over to me, and we just got talking for a few minutes. He said, would you like a cup of tea? And I said, sure. And he's like, I know the best place to get a cup of tea. Well, it turned out to be his apartment. And needless to say, it was a weird experience, but nothing extremely bad happened to me or anything. I just kind of had to keep maneuvering myself away from him, because a strange thing happened with this guy banging on the door, and he's telling me that it's some still weirdo that, I think it was just a setup. He was expecting something to happen, and it's just like, it didn't happen. As soon as that light came, as soon as it got daylight, I was gone. And then I just proceeded to hitchhike. And like, if anybody were to, the first place I hitchhiked or went to first was to Liverpool, because the Beatles, and it was such a wonderful experience in that once I got to Liverpool, I ended up meeting these two merchant marine guys that were from Liverpool, and they found out I was American, and they ended up taking me to every pub in Liverpool the whole day, and they took me out for a steak dinner, and it didn't look like they hardly had 2 pennies to rub together. We all went to a friend of theirs where we crashed for the night. They were perfect gentlemen the whole time, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. They had to go the next day, so I had my way. I met a whole soccer team. That would have been bad, because they were getting, it was almost closed time, and they were getting advanced. Said, come with us, and it's like, no, thank you. That was using my intuition that time. But I really, these two guys were the nicest guys. I wish I knew their names or remember. It just didn't hit me. So then I was going to head up to Scotland, and I ended up getting a ride with this truck driver who seemed really nice. And he kept saying, I have to make one stop, and then I'm going home to Lincolnshire. It's a beautiful place. You ought to come, and my family, we'll show you around and stuff like this. I don't think he said it was his family, because I didn't know anything about his family until I got there. And so after I said okay, after he made a stop, and it was a straight shot then across the country to Lincolnshire, he starts talking about the Lincolnshire killer. And I didn't know it at the time, but I guess newspapers give a little bit more detail, and they know more about cases than what we tend to find out about in our country, in the U.S. And to the point where I was like saying to myself, this guy's the Lincolnshire killer. He's going to kill me. You know what I mean? So I was just like trying to humor him the best I could, and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, he ends up pulling up. There's a housing development that it's on a slope kind of thing, and he pulls up on and pulls over on this next to this curb on this road that's overlooking this housing development. And then he just says, I'll be right back, just stay here. So I end up locking the doors and scooting down, and I wasn't going to let him back in. He probably had the keys. I didn't think about it, but I didn't know what the heck was going on. I did see a woman coming up, walking the dog coming up, that's what it was, up the hill. And he runs down to her and she just slaps him. Well, it turns out that's his wife. He had cheated on her before, and he's trying to tell her, no, no, it's nothing like this. This is a traveler from the U.S. Just thought she'd like to come here and, stay with us. I was going to check with you first or whatever. After a while, he's banging on the door. It's okay. Everything's okay. And I ended up staying with them for a few days. And they were the nicest people. And her father, it was a section of England that I couldn't understand what they were saying half the time, but, just did a lot of this. And her father, who was an elderly man, he came over to their house. They introduced me. He's like, let me show her around town, kind of thing. That's the impression I got. And they're like, okay, and I could tell there was a little cautionary thing. The first thing we did was head towards the pub where we got together with all his friends sitting there, and they were buying me beer and toasting and saying this, and I'm just like, okay, but I had the best time. It was so funny. And then all of a sudden, Linda, his daughter, come in, and she just started griping at him. How dare you bring her here? And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I was fine with it, but she was a little upset with them and dragged me out of there. But they took me on a little tour around. They were the nicest people. I spent, like I said, a couple of days with them. From there, I went, I did go to Edinburgh, and from Edinburgh, I went down. I was going to head towards London, and I got in a truck driver. I couldn't tell you. I did have a map at one time where I was kind of highlighting where I was going, what direction, whatever, but I think that's long gone. And then I was near Wales, the southern part of, Great Britain, and then Wales is over here, and I must have been kind of towards the border of Wales, because got a ride from this truck driver that said, I'm going all along the coast, you ought to come. I was like, okay, so, and the picture that I'm going to use, which I haven't taken yet, where I'm looking in a mirror of a truck, and I took a picture of myself doing that. That was with this truck driver, who was the sweetest. I mean, he treated me to fish and chips, which was delicious. And I spent the night at his place, but he was a perfect gentleman. I just slept on this living room, almost like window seat kind of thing that he had. And, the next day I took off for London. And, he was a real sweetie. I think if he would have said, why don't you just stay here with me, I might have, he was just kind. I don't know anybody's names. I'm really bad with names. I didn't care about knowing people's names, whatever, but that's just how I was. Anyways, long story short, and then I found out, I looked at my papers with the military thing, and they did it wrong, where they had written on my papers for me to wear my uniform on the way back to Germany, and I didn't bring a uniform with me. So I was going past Cambridge, and I decided that I figured, okay, it's a college, they should have a typewriter, maybe I can use some whiteout or fix that paperwork. And I met a college student that showed me around Cambridge and helped me fix my paperwork and everything. That was such a great trip. Other than the weird guy that I met the first night, I met such terrific people that it caused me to really go out of my way whenever I met someone that's a foreigner in my country, to remember, how it made my time there just the best. So I appreciate every person that's from Great Britain that I ever came across, because it was just an experience. I mean, to the point where I went home with money still in my pocket, because people just took me in. And, again, I'm not recommending that kind of thing for anybody else. That was a different time altogether. But if, that's just how it was. I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't even know how to drive at that point. It's like, if I wanted to go someplace, that was the way to do it, And let's see, how much time? 20 minutes, something like that. So I guess that's all the experience I could share with you about hitchhiking. And it's, nowadays I see a hitchhiker, and it's like, even I wouldn't dare pick anybody up because you just don't know anymore. And sometimes I wish I had that in me back then, so I didn't have some of the issues I did have. But overall, and I have to say too, one of my favorites in this country, getting rides from was like young guys for the most part, because you know a lot of people smoked pot back there, so you know there was always plenty of munchies and you know smoke along the way. So uh, it wasn't very far along the way. Well, I guess there was one guy in particular that was, I met a DJ up in Canada. We ended up going to his radio station and making this recording. I used to laugh so much, and I didn't know he was recording, and I just laughed my butt off with it. That was a sweet thing. Yeah, he wanted me to stay in Canada. Maybe I should have. I don't know. He was sweet too. Anyways, it was all an experience. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is pick what subject I'm going to talk about next week. You know, seriously, I don't ever see any, well, too many comments, but, you know, if you want me to talk about something in particular, or you want to share your experience, or you want to say anything, I hope more people will leave comments, because it just would inspire me to keep doing this, I guess. I don't know. All right, so I'm picking out of my little box my subject for next week. Although I am having fun with this, and I'm learning about myself. And if you notice, I didn't say you know, but I haven't done my reading yet. It seems like that's when I do it the most. Okay, now I picked gardening, but the other day, remember, instead of doing anything about moving, okay, that is something I want to talk about. The one thing I thought about more than anything when it comes to moving, because that was supposed to be my subject, and I have moved a lot. And when I look at it now, I think that was just because I never felt at home any place. And maybe that's some of the frustration other people feel when they just don't feel settled. It's you just haven't found your home. Because I look at this place now, and for the first time in my life, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to travel. I don't want to go anywhere. I love it. I've made it my own. I've made it a reflection of myself, and I feel like I'm at home, so I'm at peace. So maybe that's what some of you just haven't found yet. And if you keep looking and you keep moving in the right direction, you'll find you. So I'm not going to talk about gardening because I already did that. So I will pick another one here. Let's see what this says. Oh my goodness. I must have thrown things back in. Meditation I've done. Okay. Let's try for a third time. Otherwise, I guess you guys need to give me a subject. Any subject will do. Let's see if this one doesn't work. Oh, okay. Next week will be a little bit more serious. My mom, I'm not saying anything negative about her. We all have different experiences, and a lot of women have gone through the experience of it. But I had an abusive alcoholic stepfather, and that really affected all of us in different ways. So I'll talk about that next time. I'm throwing these pieces of paper away so that they don't come up again. Okay, and now let me do my 3-card spread for you. Okay. So if you're a first-time viewer, I like to say that this is for entertainment purposes only. I read tarot cards. I'm not a fortune teller. I just like to pull 3 cards that kind of give us some guidance on, you know, being mindful about what we do, what we say, you know, here I go with the again, paying attention to our emotions and our intuitions and trying to draw to us a physical experience that brings us a little bit more joy and such. So let me take just a minute to focus on what I'm doing with the cards. Again, it's usually guidance for the coming week. think about something to help us in our decision making. Okay, I'll do the 3 card piles again. Okay. Ooh. I'm telling you, I guess that's what this is all about. I either this or the Hermit card. I've pulled, I'd say at least 80% of the time, and this is in our future. You know, it is all about us spending our time wisely. Okay, so let's. All right, I will say the first card for the past is the Fool, and it was reversed. That's kind of the same thing. The Fool is all about the beginning of a new journey, of a new adventure, of a new experience, you know, and having that willpower to start something new, to take a chance. But sometimes, you know, this represents the ideas of almost like a young person. Sometimes, just like what I was talking about today with hitchhiking, we don't necessarily think about the risks or turbulence that might be caused by what we're doing. So there's actually a caution in that. That yes, it's good to have that energy to move forward and to want to get started and get going, because I mean, one of the things that we've talked about before is, you know, just make the changes, get going, doing things. But, you know, be careful where you step, that's all. You know, if you're going into unfamiliar territory, you know, it's exciting to start something new, and it's, you know, but just be careful where you step, and be careful of things that maybe you don't have any experience with, and you know, you want to get going, you want to get going fast, but there's a caution there. Take a little time, really kind of put a little bit of thought into it at least. That's in the past, and maybe that's telling us, especially as we get older. I don't know who's been viewing these. I'm amazed by, you know, it might seem like a small crowd to most people that do these kind of YouTube channels, but I'm shocked to know that on one in particular that I've got over 100 people that have viewed it. It's like, who would possibly, but I would love for you to share who's watching, how you stumbled across this, or, you know, where you're from, etc., etc. So anyways, you know, what comes to mind is maybe, for example, you're an older person that you know, it doesn't matter how old you are. Sometimes, you know, it is good for our soul to adventure out, to try something new, different. But it's looking back on when we've done it before. What kind of experience did we have before, to make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes. That's always a good thing. It's wanting you to be courageous. I'm saying it, meaning spirit, wants us to be courageous, wants us to try things that we feel we need to in our heart, the bucket list kind of thing. But we're not, you know, you're not as young as being a teenager, or, you know, 13 or 14, where you just kind of trust and, you know, ready. Use some sense. It's always nice to have a few bucks in your pocket first, blah, blah, blah. So let's see where that goes, because in the Now card, to understand, this is the Magician, and it also was in reverse. I'm watching the little puppy walking outside the gate carrying something large. I'm hoping it's not a dead chicken or anything. Anyways, the Magician is when he's upright, she knows how to use their tools that are available. They know how to use their words wisely. They know how to take right action that does benefit them, and then in return, when they're feeling joy and balanced and everything, then the people around them can feel that way. They know that they're not just physical, they're spiritual. So they know how to trust their instincts, and therefore they're the magician. They can manifest in the physical the experience that they've been feeling in their heart they wanted to. When it's reversed, it's not having as much confidence in that. So it's really a time to understand and maybe to review now. Okay, if you had a really negative experience pop up, really think about the things that you were saying and doing and thinking and before that happened. And did you get signals? Did you, in your intuitions, I'm kind of keep getting drawn back because these readings aren't just for you, they're for me too. And if I'm talking about the experience I just shared with you about that guy in the truck and how my intuition said, don't do it, I should have paid attention to it so that the next time, if I were to be in that position of getting a ride from someone, I think about that past experience and how a lot of good came from me being courageous and going out and finding more confidence in myself. But because I didn't follow my intuitions, because I didn't trust myself, something negative happened, and maybe I just need to have that experience. I'm not saying that was a bad experience because it all brought me to being the person I am today, but there I go with that. Maybe you don't know. If I were to do it today, I would do it differently because of that experience from yesterday. I hope that makes a sense. So that's where those two are coming in. You can create a more joyful, peaceful, loving experience doing the same thing by reviewing how you did it in the past and the things that didn't work and the things that did work. Okay. And it's all, again, we have the 4 swords for the future. That will make you stronger. When you spend time within yourself to ask for guidance or to try to figure out a situation, the more you do examine how you handled things in the past, taking responsibility for your role in it, that when you spend that time looking for guidance now, when you do that, you will be stronger. You'll recognize those things more. You'll be able to let go of the things that don't work in your life quicker because you've built up that strength of reviewing how you did things in the past. When you see a cycle, when you see something repeating in your life and you know that you haven't dealt with what you're doing to attract that to you again, and then you say, okay, maybe, the common factor is this person in particular that I've never felt was a balanced relationship, and every time I'm around this person, I end up, not to put the blame on the other person, you've drawn that to yourself. You've chose to participate in that relationship. So when you come to realize that, okay, maybe I need to spend less time with this person because it's not their fault, it's mine, and it's just imbalanced. It just, the next time you meet a person that's kind of similar to that, you're going to recognize them because you've already paid attention. You've already kind of looked deeply at what it was about that relationship that just didn't work, that then expanded out into an experience you were both having that lasted longer than you wanted it to. I'm really hoping that makes sense to you, but every time you try to evolve and raise your energy level by being more conscious about what it is you're doing and saying and thinking and being, it becomes that much easier to meditate, to pray. That connection's going to be stronger. That guidance will be clearer. I can only speak through my experience, and sometimes, like I said previously, it takes years to get to that point, but through that experience I have learned every time I've put a better foot forward, like the Fool does. He steps forward. I feel stronger and I feel more confident, and I am able to allow more joy to come in. And that's an important thing for all of us, that we've got to find those things that bring us more joy and make us feel more at home with ourselves and our surroundings. So, okay, if we're going to add those up, there's not much for 5. Okay. Um, fives are all about issues that come up, and that's kind of what we were talking about here. When you recognize that there's an issue, that things don't feel like they're going smoothly for you, stop and think about what's going on. That's all. Don't just ignore it. Just wait for it to go away on its own. You can do something about it. So 5s are just recognizing when there's an issue and taking the time out to deal with that issue. All right. Well, I give you thanks to all of you for being present. I pray that you go forward in your day feeling more connected to all that is around you. Let the Spirit shine in you, through you, and all around you. Blessed be. Have a great week. Bye.